10 days ago, we opened this arc with a graph, 250 million years of extinctions, spaced out on a rhythm nobody could fully explain. Since then, we've watched a supervolcano recharge, a single bacterium returned 3 times across 14 centuries, 2 empires fail the same way, 1,600 years apart, 4 bubbles burst on the same 5-stage curve, a continent of alliances sleepwalk into war, a correct idea get rejected twice, and a mathematician try to put a timer on the rise and fall of nations. Every single one of those episodes ended on the same unresolved note. The pattern is real, and nobody has fully explained why it keeps happening. Today, for the last episode in this arc, we're asking a different question. Not why does it recur, but now that we can see the pattern, can anyone actually catch it before it happens again? The answer isn't a clean yes. It's a handful of real systems built by real institutions, right now specifically to try, and every one of them is incomplete, underfunded, or still being tested against the next event nobody's had yet. This is day 140 of Your Dose of Wowness, the finale of the Recurrence. 10 days ago, we started with a pattern nobody could stop. Today, we look at what it actually takes to try. Transitioning from passive observation to active intervention means leaving the comfort of theory behind. We don't have triumphant, foolproof solutions. Instead, we have to rely on messy, politically vulnerable, and often underfunded real-world infrastructure. On day 133, we traced the Yersinia pestis bacterium as it tore through human populations across 14 centuries. Today, that exact organism still circulates in wild rodents. Our primary defense against it, and countless other resilient pathogens, is a growing global infrastructure for genomic surveillance. When public health agencies collect a disease sample, they load it into genetic sequencing machines, like the one you see here. This technology allows scientists to read a pathogen's genetic code and map out its mutations in near real time, shrinking the identification process from months to mere days. That sequencing effort extends into our municipal infrastructure. These circular settling tanks in a modern wastewater treatment plant act as a community-wide early warning system. Infected individuals shed detectable genetic material in their waste well before they feel sick, allowing health officials to flag arising pathogens days before hospital admissions spike. The World Health Organization, whose headquarters is shown here in Geneva, attempts to coordinate these data streams across international borders. Since 2020, they have pushed reforms like the Pandemic Influenza Preparedness Framework to try and close the rapid data sharing gaps exposed by COVID-19. However, these systems rely heavily on existing laboratory infrastructure, leaving global coverage heavily biased toward wealthier nations. Deep fluctuations in yearly funding levels and slower data sharing caused by national sovereignty disputes keep this network far short of complete global coverage. Back on day 131, we looked at the statistical likelihood of mass extinctions arriving on a 26 million year cycle. Setting the exact timeline aside, the underlying threat of a large near-Earth object striking the planet is concrete. NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office exists entirely to track those incoming bodies. In September 2022, that office achieved the first real-world test of altering a celestial body's trajectory. This schematic illustrates the DART mission, where NASA piloted a spacecraft on a direct collision course with Dimorphos, a moonlet orbiting the larger asteroid Didymos. As the animation shows, the kinetic force successfully altered the moonlet's path. Dimorphos's orbital period was shortened by a full 32 minutes, a far larger shift than planners expected, and physical proof that asteroid deflection works. Launching a deflection mission requires years of advance warning. That lead time comes from ground-based survey telescopes like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory shown here, which must repeatedly scan the sky night after night to flag moving objects against the fixed star field. We have proven we can redirect an asteroid, but our current cataloging efforts remain blind to a significant portion of smaller, city-threatening objects. Building and running the incremental infrastructure required to find them depends entirely on sustained institutional funding that can easily drop off as political priorities shift. On day 135, we watched financial bubbles burst in a repeating pattern spanning 4 centuries. Following the 2008 crisis, international regulators introduced the Dodd-Frank Act and the Basel III framework, specifically to blunt the systemic risk hiding in markets like the one anchored behind this Wall Street sign. These regulations enforce much higher capital reserve requirements for major banks. The goal is straightforward: ensure financial institutions hold enough liquid assets to absorb massive unexpected losses without triggering a cascading global collapse. Yet, economists are still actively debating whether these safeguards are actually working. Critics argue that instead of eliminating the risk, these rules have simply pushed the five-stage bubble dynamics we explored earlier out of traditional banking and into less regulated shadow banking sectors. Unlike a circulating virus or an incoming comet, financial bubbles run on human euphoria. Regulations can force banks to hold more cash, but they do not eliminate the underlying behavioral loop. They merely redistribute the risk. Whether we are sequencing wastewater, deflecting asteroids, or stressing bank reserves, the reality is that none of these systems prevent recurrence outright. What they do is convert invisible risks into measurable warning time, buying us a window to act. But look at the glaring asymmetry in our global infrastructure. We have built dedicated international networks to track pathogens and scan the solar system, yet we possess zero institutional equivalent to monitor a Bronze Age-style systemic collapse or the kind of alliance cascade that triggered World War I. Surviving recurrence relies entirely on a single human variable: our capacity to sustain the political will and the funding to keep paying attention, year after year, long after a disaster fades from public memory. If you've made it through all 10 days of this arc, subscribing means you won't miss what's next, and today's sign-off has a first look at where we're headed. That's the recurrence. 10 days, 10 patterns. The extinction cycle, the volcano's return, the plague that came back, the shadow of Rome, the bubble that always bursts, Halley's fire in the sky, the sleepwalkers of 1914, the idea they rejected twice, empires on a timer, and today, breaking the cycle. Every one of those episodes was about something that kept happening again. Tomorrow, we start looking at something different. Not what keeps repeating, but what happens the moment something can't be undone. We're calling the next arc The Line We Can't Uncross, and it starts soon.
Thank you for sharing this moment of pure wonder. You are the true magic that fuels this journey. Until next time, remember to shine bright.